live with the community. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development bi-weekly call. Today is June 8th. We are almost halfway through the year. How did that happen? Time flies when you are having fun. Hot diggity dog. That's right. Let's talk about some fun today. We are going to cover the updates with the community. We're going to talk about all our initiatives. We're going to talk about samples. Then we're going to have picture time together, so get those cameras ready. And then we're going to have our three amazing all-stars of the day. We're going to see Samir talking about Power Platform Custom Connector for ChatGPT. Jonathan is going to get into tracking workflow runs and errors using Power Automate and SharePoint. And Martin is going to wrap it up with build your own documentation web part with our website with DocFX on SharePoint. So much better together stuff today. Excellent. Let's talk about how you can get engaged in the community. What resources are available? We've got some videos for you, a whole plethora of them. It means a lot to us for you to be able to take advantage of those. See what I did there? And we also have a LinkedIn group discussion for you to check out. So you can do both of those, interactive, take advantage of that. We have open source initiatives, and we got just, I don't know, a couple of galleries, and by a couple I mean a whole lot. We've got community samples that span the range of team samples, SPFX web parts, extensions, Power Platform samples, and we got an exciting update on that today, and list formatting, so many more team samples, all of the above. Take advantage of them. All you need to do is remember all these links all the time. I'm kidding, just one, aka.ms/community/home will get you access to all these resources. And I'm going to guess you like calls. Why? Because you're here. We've got our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community calls all up available to you. Our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform weekly with Microsoft speakers is our highlight. This is every Tuesday coming at you with presenters directly from Microsoft. Now, it's important to know this is going to go on a break. We've got our Power Platform, we've got our Office add-ins, and we've got our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community, which you're on now, and Viva Connection SharePoint Framework. Those are those two bi-weekly calls. And by the way, our Power Platform call next month is going to happen at the same time as EPPC, European Power Platform Conference. So if you're going to be there, let me know. We might have a special opportunity for you. You can access all these calls at aka.ms/community/calls and get them added to your calendar. So definitely do that. Now you may be thinking, these are cool calls, and I see cool people on them, and I would love to present something. We would love you to present something. All you need to do is fill out this form, aka.ms/community/request/demo, and we will get back with you and get you scheduled on a call. It doesn't need to be anything overly complex. Don't overthink this. It's absolutely okay to come in and show off a technique, a tip, a trick, a solution that you created, something that you started that you would like to collaborate more with members of the community on. Don't hesitate. Fill in that form. We will absolutely work with you on getting it scheduled. And if you need someone to support you on it with a buddy, we got your back. Just let us know and we will get you hooked up. Now, next Tuesday on that Microsoft 365 speakers call, we have in store for you three amazing presenters. Mark is going to cover that Microsoft Syntax Repository Services powers Microsoft Loop. And then we're going to see Lynn and Kishore talking about Introduction to Power Automate Copilot. And Paula will be back talking about exposing Microsoft Teams apps in Microsoft Viva with SPFX cards. So a lot of exciting opportunity to talk about there. Now, if you're thinking, this is a lot to consume, I'm not quite sure how to take advantage of all this stuff, our Sharing is Caring program is here to provide you support in that area. Now, this is a program that provides hands-on guidance in live sessions via Teams. These sessions are safe space, meaning we don't record them, and we are looking to get them scheduled and scaling. We absolutely have finally been able to start getting more involved. For those who haven't already reached out, take a look at ak.ms/sharingiscaring/volunteer. Let us know if you'd like to help. We're scheduling those calls to try and get more calls scaled up around the globe to be friendly to your time zone. And we really appreciate everyone's patience. So thank you so much for all that you're doing in this area. And if you're looking to volunteer, let us know. Absolutely would love the help. Now, once you have contributed, we absolutely want to recognize you for that work that you are doing. And that is where our recognition program comes in. This is powered by Credly. It showcases your contributions. You can associate these badges, which are formal and official and accredited, to your LinkedIn profile, share them on Twitter, put them on your blog, put them on your resume, send them in your cards to your friends, put them on the fridge. Mom will be proud, and you can join it for free. ak.ms/community/recognition. Now, you may have seen that some areas of Microsoft have been recently announcing that they're degrading or stopping their programs that use Credly. We are not. In the community, we are actually scaling it up. So don't hesitate to sign up. We've got more campaigns coming soon. We've got hackathons. We've got special campaigns coming up that you've seen that we've done in the past. Things like our Season of Getting in the past and Hacktober. So even more campaigns we're looking to grow. So don't hesitate to get registered there. And we moved over to MailChimp for the registration, so it makes it a little easier for you to manage if you've already joined and need to change any of your information. All right. Now let's get into some project-specific updates, and we'll hand it over to Bert to talk about PnP .NET libraries.
Thank you, David. For the PnP world, PnP.NET world. A couple of changes these 2 weeks, not that much. We had updates in PnP framework from Urban on the Teams provisioning pieces in the provisioning engine. And Gautam did some fixes to deal with creating site collections in non-default clouds. So if you have a US government cloud, for example, then there were some issues that's been fixed. In ChorusDK side, ChorusDK is our newer library. We had a couple of small fixes, mainly around term set localization, about the get comments method, so you can get list comments or page comments, and a few other smaller fixes. But overall, pretty stable and I think ready for summertime. Let's move to PowerShell then. Thank you all.
Awesome. Got him.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Bert. In PowerShell as well, we are going into the summer mood, so things have been slightly slower. So what we did was we added allow deletion parameter to the set PnP list command, so it prevents deletion of the lists from the UI. And we also added a vertical zone emphasis parameter in the add PnP page section commandlet. So you can, emphasize a vertical zone in the page, and you can specify the emphasis levels of that particular zone. What next? Would absolutely love to hear from you on the discussion forums, and feel free to give us feedback on the discussion forum as well as on the issue list or on the GitHub. Yep, thanks. Over to you, David.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Gautam. All right, let's move on to Yo Teams with Rick.
Hey. So Yo Teams, as well, we're going into summer mode. But of course, we added some support for the Teams manifest 1.14, 1.15, and we need to fix some minor bugs. There has been an issue reported yesterday, which makes my life pretty hard. But we'll get that fixed before the summer. And of course, we need your help to help with the Visual Studio Code extension, and of course for the SSO. So if you want to help, please just commit, go to GitHub, commit, check out the code, do a commit, and we're welcome to have you to the team. That's it. Over to John.
Awesome. Vesa's going to cover that today, but I love the commit. You got to commit and then just commit. Thanks, Rick. Vesa is going to cover Microsoft Teams Toolkit today.
I'm really committed on this, though. This is really good. So
you are very committed.
Commit. Remember to commit. Now, on the Teams Toolkit side, the V5 version went live a week before build, and that's now in general availability, which should be the one which we should be using. And there's the new dev tunnels feature. There's a lot of additional samples available, and we are already planning the V5.1 release coming, of course, later this year, and what's included in there. A lot of cool stuff. Please do give us feedback so we're able to address and make it even better. Thank you for that. Let's move to the next one.
Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. Let's jump into Microsoft Teams Toolkit. I don't see Gavin here.
They were not as committed.
That's right. They were not as committed. They're busy committing, so they couldn't commit.
Oh, they're committing to the call.
That's true. Yeah,
yes,
that's probably. I'm sure that's it, because they're always committing. Yes. All right, just shipped. V2.11.1 is the latest update. Just shipped the release candidate for V3. Definitely check that out. Third preview release again is in the making, and of course they need your help as well. So don't hesitate. There's help wanted. Good first issues. Absolutely a great way to get involved. Seb and Gavin are very welcoming. So just reach out if you have any questions. All right, let's get it over to Jocelyn on connectors.
Hello, everybody. As we know, there's over 1,000 Power Platform certified connectors now, specifically 1,027, with even more made by independent publishers and community members like you guys that were made by Microsoft ourselves. As you guys know, there have been a ton of awesome updates about connectors since we since we had build a few weeks ago, including the fact that connectors are going to be some of that fuel for that M365 Copilot. I would love to dive deeper into this with everybody. So in next week's Labs call, specifically focused on connectors, I'm actually bringing the Partner Director of Dataverse to talk about everything you missed at build in the world of Power Platform and connectors so we can get into the good stuff. Even though we have over 1,000, we still need more. So please check out our GitHub and see how you can create a connector too. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. That's awesome. Woo, over 1,000. Nice. Let's get into script samples with Paul Bullock.
Hey everybody, so Script Samples is a repository for hosting PowerShell scripts that work with M365. So that could be done in various tools, so PnP PowerShell, Microsoft Graph, CLI, for example. So we have a couple of new scenarios, which is samples, which is awesome. So allow custom scripts SharePoint Online by Ganesh Snap, and SharePoint list item version history retrieval by Casper Larsen. I do have a couple more PRs to process, so sorry I'm a bit behind on that. A couple of extra things I just wanted to point out. So I've written a PowerShell script to actually generate the sample scaffolding. So to save you setting all up the files and the locations and stuff like that. So you can run a PowerShell script that actually build that out. All you have to do is then plop in your sample and fill out a couple of details on the README file just to make things a bit easier. It is there on the root of the repo if you want to give that a go, and just to help speed things up. If you're struggling at all, reach out to me and I can always support that. I had some good news as well. So we got an extra couple of badge types for script samples as well. So we've now got 1, 2, 3 star badges which have been released recently. So thank you for David for setting that up. It's great to recognize those contributors that do that extra mile. So with different levels of contributions, which is super awesome. So thank you everybody. But again, reach out if you need anything, and I'll be happy to support you. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Really well done. Excellent. Let's go over to Bob German and talk about some team samples.
Hey, everybody. Thanks. And thanks especially to Ijaz Hussain, who submitted a great sample which is the sample of this week. This was written in Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code 5.0. So that new version, putting it to good use. And it's also a pretty nice use case. You can enter bookmarks and share them in a SharePoint list. So, there's a million ways to display a SharePoint list, but to make it really easy for people to add those handy URLs to a bookmarks collection, here's the app to do it. It's a little bot, pops right up with a little adaptive card, as you can see right there, and it demonstrates Azure AD single sign-on and Microsoft Graph access from a Teams bot. So please check it out at aka.ms/bot graph bookmark. And also our ongoing hackathon is happening. So there's a little URL for that as well. And back to you, Dave.
Very cool. Thank you, Bob. Excellent. I love the sample of the week. Nice. All right. Well, we also have some exciting new Power Platform. You get a Power Up with April Dunnam. Tell us about this new opportunity.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Of course, we always have our Power Platform samples repo where you can submit all your Power Apps, Automate, and all that goodness samples. But we have a brand new repo for you, the Power Platform Prompts repository. So as we all know, AI is taking the world by storm. We're getting co-pilots for everything. So now it's more important than ever to know how to write a good prompt and to just even know what prompts are available and what things you can do with all of this AI goodness. So that's exactly why we created this Power Platform Prompt repo. We've seeded it with a few ideas. So wouldn't it be cool if you could proofread the material or the text that you're going to be sending out in an email instead of Power Automate before you send it out? Well, you can with the AI features built in with AI Builder and Azure OpenAI, and we have a prompt for that. We have all kinds of different prompts in there, even prompts to help you create prompts in there that you can use within all the co-pilots and Power Apps and Automate and virtual agents and pages and all that, and Azure OpenAI service. And there's more to come. We would love to see your contribution. So if you're starting to use some of these prompts and the AI features in there and you have some great ideas for prompts, please go to that repo, submit a request. And of course, we're working on some badges too. So more to come with that. Back to you, David.
Yay for badges. Awesome. All right. It is that time, everybody. Picture time. Get those cameras turned on and those fantastic faces all ready to smile. Vesa will take over.
Yep, and I somehow magically, this came as a surprise again. It's magical that we do this. Let me do that. It's like, how? Okay. Here we go. Let's wait. Few more seats in the room. I'm not going to enable my camera. Leave it that open. And Rick is already being an example on the middle. Really, really good. I am not yet recording. Let's actually get that recorder up. I think we are hitting the max 50. And I will start. 1 second. You think that after all of these years, I would know how to do this. Okay, so we'll get the recording going. 3, 2, 1, and let's do some hand waving, everybody. Excellent. Good to see you, everybody, in a call. A lot of familiar faces here. Really, really cool. Excellent and good, Rick. You're still doing it. Excellent. I think that's it. We'll craft a GIF animation out of that. Thanks, everybody. Absolutely. Have a great rest of the week as well. Then we'll go to the real stars of the day. Right, David?
Absolutely awesome. Yeah, Cody brought out, by the way, that you were just busy doing your Legos to show Todd that you actually can do them. So
that's true. That's
getting
true.
those shrubberies all set
and
up.
Rick was doing Rick rolling, right? So
That's right. Oh yeah. All right. Yes, we have amazing presenters today. We are going to start with Samir, who's going to talk to us about Power Platform Custom Connector for ChatGPT. So Samir, take it on over.
Thank you. Thanks, David. So I have a couple of slides, but it's going to be mainly a demo. Basically, today we're going to talk about how we can create an OpenAI ChatGPT connector and consume that in Power Platform. So the demo will be in 2 phases. The first phase, we're going to create the connector, configure it, and do everything with the API key and so on. The second part will be to use this connector either in Power Apps or Power Automate. A little bit about myself. My name is Samir Daoudi. I'm Power Platform architect. I've been working with Microsoft technology since forever, since I remember. I blog frequently. You can hit me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or you can follow my blog. I'm sure you're not here for this, so let me switch to more important stuff. As I said, we'll be doing 2 things today. So the first thing is to create the custom connector. In order to do that, we will go to make.powerapp.com. We are all familiar with that. If you don't see the custom connectors here, you can go to Discover More, and it should be somewhere here. So custom connector, let me pin this here, and we get started. So at the moment in this tenant, I don't have any custom connector. I'm going to get started with a new custom connector from blank. I'm going to call this demo .pt. Next. Right. So when it comes to creating the custom connector, you will be going through a wizard. So I'm going to quickly go through this. So you can select an icon for your connector. The most important part is to define the API endpoint, the way you're going to authenticate with this connector, and some details about the request, body structure, and so on. So the first thing here is the host, the API endpoint, and this is API.openai.com. I have blog posts about how to create this custom connector with screenshots, step-by-step instructions. So I'm going to try to go quickly through the steps to create this connector. Next, it's the way you're going to authenticate with this OpenAI API, and the preferred way is to use an API key. The parameter will be, let me call it parameter label. Let me call it API key, and the parameter name, which is quite important. Can type that, it's authorization. We will be passing the authorization in the header, so I'm going to leave that as it is now. Next is defining the different steps, the different actions for my connector. So let me zoom out a little bit. So I'm going to have just one action for today's demo, and I'm going to call this, ask ChatGPT. Description, more user-friendly way, ask anything. And this is the operation ID. This is the action that will be calling in Power Apps or Power Automate, and let's call this ask. Okay. Now the way our request will be structured, I'm gonna import from sample. So this will be a post request. In terms of URL, this keeps changing, to be honest with you. So you can go back to the OpenAI API reference site, where you can look. Today we'll be looking only at the completion. So basically the completion endpoint will be this one. I'm just gonna copy it. As I said, I have blog posts where I'm going slowly, step by step, with screenshots and so on. But for today, I'm just gonna run through those steps. So the header structure, it's just defining the content type. We'll be talking with JSON format. And in terms of the request body, OpenAI API expect at least those 5 parameters. So basically what we have here, we have the model, which is the language that we'll be interacting with. In this case, it's Text DaVinci 003. Prompt, this is the question or the what you'll be asking ChatGPT. In this case, I just predefined this for test purpose with what's SharePoint metadata. You have 3 other important parameters that you need to set. Max tokens is the number of tokens you'll be using. You can create a free account with the OpenAI. You get, I think, $18 credit per month that you can use for all the interactions that you'll be making with OpenAI. Temperature is a parameter which goes from 0 to 2, where 0 is a very precise answer, 2 can be very vague. And N is the number of responses that you are expecting from ChatGPT. In our case, we expect to send to ask question, get 1 response. So it's going to be always set to 1. So I'm going to import my request structure. At this stage, I can just go ahead and create the connector. So I'm going to save the change. It may take probably a minute or 2 to save. And we are ready to start testing. Perfect. So I switched to the test step. In order to test this connector, you're going to have to create a new connection. And this is where you will have to go back to OpenAI, create your account. Let me find the right URL for that. As I said, you can have a free account. Once you create your account, you go to API keys and you create a new secret key. So basically, I'm going to say M365 demo. And this is my key. So I will copy the key from here. The format of the API key has to be the following. So you're going to prefix it with bearer space and then the key that you have just generated. Right, now I have created the connector. I will go back to my the connection. Sorry, I will go back to the connector and go back to test. Here is my connection. I have 2 options. I can either fill those parameters, or I can use the same request body that I used to generate the model, which is this one. So again, I'm going to say the model is this, prompt, this is my question, and I'm going to test this connector. If everything goes well, it should return a response 200. And here we go. So SharePoint metadata is information, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. Now, what we need to do is to copy the response body. I will go back to definition. The reason why I'm doing this is because I know I will always be using those parameters. I don't need the users to keep feeding me those details. So what I will do is I'm going to set some default values here. So in my request, in the response section, I'm going to import from sample. Basically, I'm saying this is the response that you are expecting. So it says, okay, these are the properties that I expect from the response. Again, I will go back to the request and I'm going to set some default values. So content type, as I said, it's application JSON. So if I can copy that. And this is required and it's internal. Internal means that the user will not be able to change it. Again, I'm going to go to the request body. Here, I'm going to set some default values. Max tokens, we said it's 1,000. It is a required parameter and it's internal. Model is Text DaVinci. Again, it's required and it's internal. So same here. And it's 1. Okay. And the temperature would be 0. Okay, perfect. So this is our connector. It's ready to be used. We can either use it in Power Automate, Power Apps, but for today's demo, I'm going to use Power Apps. I kind of cheated a little bit and I prepared the Power Apps canvas application here. There is nothing, it's just the layout. So here we have one screen with 2 parts. So you have one text box where the user can ask a question. You have the image of the logged in user, a nice icon here for the bot, and the response will be added here. There is no code yet in this application. So the first thing we need to do, let me just refresh this. Would be to add my custom connector in this Power App. So I'll go to data. Just remember my connector demo ChatGPT. Okay. Here is my connector. All right. Now, when it comes to to using this connector, as I said, we have a question that will be coming from this text query, and the response will be set to text response. I set the default value for the response to be coming from this variable. So basically, the button will set the value of this variable. So I'm going to say set var response to my connector name dot ask. Ask is the if you remember, is the operation ID that we set, and then you have the default value. So as you can see, it's giving me what the connector is expecting. You can go with the default values. So this is the max tokens, 1000, temperature 0 and 1, and the most important is the prompt, which is the question that we'll be asking ChatGPT. So this will be coming from text query failed. Right. I will flip quickly back to my connector, just to show you how the response is structured. Sorry. Okay, what's going on here? Sorry, I don't know what's going on here with this connector, but so basically, even though we said we want one response with the end parameter, it's gonna send us, it's gonna return an array of one item. So basically, I'm gonna take the first response that we will be receiving dot choices. So it's coming from the so the response will contain different parameters, and we are only interested in the text value that we got. What I've done here is I've set to this variable the first response that I'm getting from this custom connector call. As I said, we have a choices array which will give us all the responses, and from that response, I'm taking the text value. Right. Okay. Let's see if this goes well this time. So I'm going to test the application, and I will try to ask a question. What is Power Virtual Agent? There we go. So basically, a call has been made using my API to OpenAI via the custom connector. I got an array of responses which contained just one response. I stripped everything out of that response and only displaying the text. So you can do a lot with this. I have another demo where I showed where you can keep the history of conversation by using Power Apps collections. But the fact that you have this custom connector, it opened the doors to any option. So you can use it in Power Virtual Agent, you can use it in Power Automate, you can do some translation, you can ask additional details. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. Over to you, David.
Awesome, Samir. Very, very cool. So in less than 15 minutes, you have created a connector and used it in a Power App. That is slick, slick, slick. So lots of questions in the chat. I'll let you kind of look at those, and I posted the blog post for him as well. So definitely check that out. Thank you so much. Awesome. Next up, we have Jonathan, who is tracking workflow runs and errors using Power Automate and SharePoint. So John, if you want to take it over and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, let's log some workflows in Power Automate using SharePoint, or we'll log them in SharePoint using Power Automate. I'm Jonathan Weaver. Here's my About Me stuff, SharePoint Power Platform Dev. I've been doing workflows and whatnot for a long time. I'm Black Belt in Kempo. Here's my contact information. Feel free to contact me. So what are we going to talk about? First of all, I'm going to tell you why we're doing this solution in the first place, which is because in January, we had a Microsoft outage, broke some of our managed metadata fields, and that started a bunch of workflows that were breaking, but I didn't know they were breaking until the users told me, hey, I have this approval, but I never got a request to approve it. We're now 5 months in working on fixing that, and in the meantime, I've created this solution as a real quick way to track all of the approval workflows and other workflows, but specifically saving them into SharePoint into a list with links back so that I can quickly identify what's broken and quickly go back and find them, fix them, resubmit them. So we're going to look at a global SharePoint site and a list. We're going to create a Power Automate flow. We're going to use scope actions. I love these scope actions. They're basically containers inside of Power Automate or Power Automate. And we're going to use the get workflow information to be able to track the exact workflow run. So, global site. Every SharePoint environment I work in, I create some sort of a global site. In the old days, we had parent-child relationships. So if you put a site or a list at the parent level, all of the child sites, all of the subsites could access that information, which was great until Microsoft said we're not doing that anymore. So now we all know with the flat architecture, you can't in a SharePoint list reach over to a SharePoint list in the different site collections. So instead we have to use Power Apps, Power Automate. So I create a global site. I like to call it global data. You do you, whatever works for your company or your clients. And then inside of that, I create a workflow history list. It's also that work from home list. You do you again. Inside of this list, I have just some basic columns. We've got a title, we've got a start time, end time, timeout. We all know that the Power Automate flows timeout after 28 days. And we know if you've got an extensive approval process and you've got directors and managers and VPs who have thousands of emails a day, they lose their approvals. They might not get to it within 28 days. So we need to be able to identify which workflows are going to time out soon and ping those people and say, hey, get on it. And we have an outcome field. Did it fail? Did it succeed? Did it other? A link back to the flow run. Did you know you can have a link that goes straight to the exact flow run that this item ran against? You don't have to go find the workflow and then inside the workflow scroll through your 37 flow runs that happened yesterday and find the one that is the issue. I have a resubmitted field. It's a yes, no. If you work on a team, this is imperative. Because if I go back and resubmit the workflow, I'm going to mark that as done so that one of my team members doesn't come in and say, oh, this needs to be done still and resubmit it again. That really ends up causing service tickets when directors and managers and VPs get multiple approvals for the same thing. An item info field. This is just it's a field to identify unique information about the specific item, helps you identify them more quickly. In addition, you'll see below that an item link, a link back to the exact item that the workflow was run against, and of course a workflow name, so that you know which workflow you're working with. And that is particularly useful for grouping, sorting, filtering. You might have the same workflow that breaks a lot because people forget to put a name into the approver field, and so the approval action breaks. No problem. We know exactly which workflow it is. We've got the links to go right back to it. So you'll see I've got the whole demo in the slides, and then I'll show you again in real life. So what does the workflow framework look like? So I put these pieces into every approval workflow that I build. So this workflow is a manually triggered workflow. It would be called get approvals for the thing. I add in my approval or my logging information, which is you can see the initialized string called item info. That's that unique identifying information. I like to put in things like the ID, the title, maybe an employee name if it's say a travel request, or if it's approvals, maybe you put in the approvers' names into this field so you can identify it really quickly. Now here's where we get into the scopes. You notice I have 4 scope actions here. I have this one called actions right here in the beginning. This is the meat and potatoes of your workflow. This is all the stuff that happens. At the end, once that action has either succeeded or failed, it jumps down here to these other 2 scopes. I've got a result for on success and I've got a result for on failure. And you'll notice, very important, this red dotted line arrow right here. If you have not set your configure run after to has failed, it will get through this action. It will come down, it will say, oh, I succeeded. Oh, and I also failed. And then you're going to spend 20, 30 minutes trying to go through the meat and potatoes of your workflow, trying to figure out what failed. And then at the end, you're going to feel really dumb when you realize it's because you forgot to set that run after. We'll look at that in more details. That log workflow history, inside of that is a scope inside of a scope. And these are great, these little containers. And the beauty of the containers is you can shrink, and you can expand and compress those so that you can see more on the screen. But also, when you're creating a new workflow and you're using the same actions over and over, instead of having to copy all 4 of these actions, I can copy this one scope action and it will bring all 4 of the actions with it. I love it. Saves me a ton of time. So here's the steps that I do specific to the history, to this exact use case. I have a convert time zone because we all know the time ends up being in UTC, and most of us don't live or work in UTC. Get workflow information. That's a compose action, and it's literally just workflow parentheses inside of an expression. And what that does, that gets all of the information about this exact workflow run that you can then use this big, ugly concat statement on the left and throw that into an expression in the workflow run URL compose statement. And that's going to be the link to this exact flow run. And then I have just your basic SharePoint create workflow history item, where you're going to use all of these pieces of information to create the list item inside of the list. All right, jumping down, once again, inside the result on success and on failure, you've got an update workflow history item. And that basically says that's where we put the end time in. That's where we put the completion. Is it succeeded? Did it fail? The outcome. And, you know, it never hurts to throw an email out there that tells your user that it completed, that it succeeded, it failed. And once again, you notice it's very important that you have this red dotted line arrow and not a black solid arrow right here. And I'll show you how that works in the demo. So slideshow's done. That's me. That's my blog. That's my email, Twitter. Hit me up. If you see me live at a conference, ask me for a sticker. I've got a Dojo Dude sticker. I've also got whiteboard MVP stickers if you like Microsoft Whiteboard. So let's go demo real quick. All right. So here's my workflow history workflow. Should look familiar. It's exactly what was in that picture. Manually trigger a workflow for the sake of demo. We won't have time to actually run the workflow, but I'll show you the outcomes of it. I always tell people when you're using SharePoint, especially if your trigger is on a new item, but also if it's on a modified item, always use a get item right after it. And anything that you do in the rest of the workflow should be pointing back to that get item. Never point back to your trigger because the trigger changes. The trigger can change. If you need to change your trigger, you need to delete it. You lose all of your stuff from below. But if you just use the get item and everything below it, all the dynamic values point back to your get item, all you have to change is the ID. That's it. So that's my piece of information for that. So here's my item information. Again, I said I like the ID and the title. The ID is unique. You know it's unique. It has to be. The title usually is important. Again, I'll put like an employee name or the approvers in this case. Jump on down to the actions. We've got the scope action right here. And if you haven't seen a scope action, if you haven't used one, I highly recommend checking them out. Again, they're just containers. Scope, it's right here. Scope control. You put that in, you put all your actions inside of it, and then you can use it as a container. So what do we have? We've got the log workflow history scope. Convert time zone, that's your basic, put in the UTC now, tell it what format you want, what time zone you need it to be in. Get workflow info. This is exactly what it looks like. It's an expression that just workflow parentheses, and it gives you all of the workflow information. Workflow run URL. So this is where we have that big ugly concat statement that I showed you in the PowerPoint. And then we have the create workflow history item. See, I could put the concat for the title up here. I just use the title of the workflow and the output from the convert time zone. For me, that works great. For you, you might need something different. Start time, UTC now. It just needs to be right now. For the timeout, I told you that's like I do 28 days. I know there's it might be 30 days, but I'd rather catch it early than catch it late. So we're just doing an add days. The flow run is the output from the workflow run URL, compose statement up top. Resubmitted, make sure you default that to no. If you default that to yes, then everything shows that it's been resubmitted and, no one knows what to do with it. And yes, per the chat comment, set variable, you can do, I believe you can do a set variable. You cannot do a initialize variable inside of a scope for sure. And then we have that stir info, the item info right here, and the name of the workflow so that you can sort and filter, and the link to the item. And then you do all of your approval stuff. At the end, it's going to either succeed or fail. Got your results on success, got your result on failure. And for those of you who haven't used the configure run after, it's right here. You click the 3 dots, configure run after, and make sure that the failure one says has failed. All right. And then real quickly, here's the output list. This is my workflow history list. You can see I've got one that failed. I've got one that succeeded. Here's my flow run. So this link takes me right back into Power Automate, takes me directly to the flow run for that flow so I can fix it and resubmit it. And item information, the workflow name, and of course, I love that we can group and filter by this one. And then a link back to the exact item, back in the actual approval process, whatever the SharePoint list is for the approval process. So that's it in a nutshell. There's a blog post out that has all of this information. Dave posted the link to it as well. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. That's it.
Very cool stuff. Thanks, Jonathan. Very cool. Really appreciate how useful this is in using the different technologies together. Again, love the better together scenarios that everyone's bringing together today. Excellent job. We'll have some opportunities for everybody to ask questions and continue the conversation afterwards. But for now, we're going to move into our final demo of the day by Martin, and it's going to be build your own documentation website with DocFX on SharePoint. So excited for this one. Take it away.
Thank you, David. Let's start with a short presentation. So for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Martin Heusser. I work at Houlihan Lokey as a senior Microsoft 365 engineer, and I live in Stäfa, which is near Zurich in Switzerland. I'm a Microsoft 365 Apps and Services MVP, and on the right side, you can see some of my favorite technologies I like to work and tinker with. So today we're going to talk about DocFX and why it's awesome. Also, what are kind of the challenges or the stepping stones to get started with working with this tool. What did I do to make it easier for you to get started if you've never worked with it before? And we're going to talk about where you can host a DocFX generated website. And of course, there will be a demo time. These are the technologies that have been used in this project. So we got SharePoint Online, DocFX, PowerShell, and the awesome PnP PowerShell module, which is really helpful for all things SharePoint Online and PowerShell. So DocFX is a open source static website generator, which is maintained by the .NET Foundation. And the way it works is you basically have some markdown files, which are just plain text files with some very light and easy to learn syntax, which in the end generates HTML files or a website containing HTML files from said markdown files. And the output you'll see will look very similar to what you can see, for example, on learn.microsoft.com or also many other documentation websites out there. Why I think it's an awesome tool, or why documenting in Markdown is one of the best things ever, is that you get a single source for all of your docs. You can change all the you can track all the changes with Git, no matter if they're stored in a GitHub repo or in Azure DevOps repo or whatever Git repository you use. You'll be able to track all the changes, and content is always in plain text, so it's very easy to migrate it to another tool, to another solution or whatever. You can easily manipulate the text. For example, if you have like a name change or something else like IP addresses or whatever changes inside your technical documentation, just read the files into memory with PowerShell, and you can manipulate, replace, and do everything in an automated way instead of going through each document manually. You can do continuous integration, continuous deployment if you set that up later once you build the site. And it's just a very great user experience if consumers of that documentation can read and learn about your product or about your internal IT environment on a website. So they'll have search functionality, they'll be able to create and share links to articles or even to sections within articles and all that stuff. And if you're a little bit more advanced with Markdown, you can also reuse content across different articles. So if you have like sections which are always going to be the same, you could just reference that part, and you only need to change it in one file if something changes. So I've been working with DocFX for a couple of years now. I'm building my own documentation websites, and there is a learning curve for Markdown syntax. So you have to learn how you can create titles, tables, how links work and everything. And you also need to take a look at the YAML structure. Like this is where you create the table of content files so that every or all the links of your website work properly. And you have to figure out how the folder structure inside your project works. And of course, if you want to publish that website anywhere, you'll need some basic web hosting or server skills to get that website published. Now, because of all these challenges I initially faced, I decided to create some PowerShell scripts, which will greatly help you to get started. So instead of just creating a vanilla DocFX project, you can use a script to generate a pre-populated folder structure from a CSV. So you'll be able to define your categories and subcategories and everything. And the folder structure, all the YAML files, all the references and everything will be automatically created for you by the script. And there's also a script to upload and update that content if you decide to put your DocFX page on SharePoint Online. And then as an experiment, I'm also working on some PowerShell functions to just make certain things a little bit easier, like creating links to images and stuff like that. I'll show that in the demo as well. So it's, in the end, once you've generated the site, it's just a static website, so you can host it on any web server, really. You can put it on GitHub pages or Azure App Service, static web app, or even SharePoint Online with a few tweaks. That's what I'm going to show you. If you decide to put it on SharePoint, you'll have no additional hosting fees because you don't need a server. You'll have built-in authentication from Azure AD already, and you can use your or leverage your existing permission structures. Like if you have a team and the team already has members, there's no need to assign more permissions or whatever. And one of the coolest things is that your documentation content will be indexed and searchable across all Microsoft 365 apps or even Windows Start menu search if you have that set up as well. So let's go to the repository. So everything is available on GitHub. You can just clone the repository. And there's also a accompanying documentation website. I'll show that later if we still have time. So once you've cloned the repository from GitHub, it will look like this. We have a few folders, and we have some PowerShell scripts in these. But first, I want to show you how it would look like if you decide to just create a vanilla project with DocFX. So you on the Docs website, I just mentioned everything is noted, what tools you need to install and everything. Of course, I already have everything pre-installed for the demo. So we do it like this, just DocFX init, and then specify the output folder, and this will generate the project under the docs folder. And now you can see there are some Markdown files, and some YAML files and stuff. But what I want to show you is how that looks in the web browser. If we decide to serve that website locally, preview it. So this is going to create a site folder, which is the output, which is also what you would put on a server. Now we can see there's not much on there. That's just how it works when you get started with DocFX. So you need to figure out everything yourself if you're not using my script. So it's pretty empty, and we just have two categories here in the horizontal nav bar. So let's close that, go back here. and we can delete this folder again. Now there is a structure CSV file. You can put in all the categories you would want to have in your documentation. So this is kind of assumes you want to document your internal IT environment or cloud environment. So we have a couple of Azure stuff in here, Microsoft 365 with subcategories like Teams, SharePoint, Exchange, etc. So yeah, let's just go to our initialized DocFX script, which is the script that will create the DocFX project for us. We'll have to give it a name. Let's just call that demo docs. That's the only parameter that's needed. And now you can see it created a docs folder again. But if I serve that page, we'll see that it's already got way more content in there. Browser, and now we can see all the categories we have. For subcategories, we have them structured in sub menus, which can be expanded and collapsed. And there is like a demo or an empty file in for each category. So we have the breadcrumbs as well. Now let's say we don't want this call flows part here. We don't need that. So what we can do is just close the server, delete the folder again, go back to our CSV, remove that line, and regenerate the whole thing. Again, serve that again. So you can do this as many times as you like until you're happy with the structure you laid out. Now you can see the call flows menu is gone. Now, under the build folder, there is another script called build DocFX for SharePoint Online. And this is a script which uses the PnP PowerShell module. And if we go back to docs and site, we can see that we have all these HTML files. So basically for every article, there is a HTML file. So all the markdown was converted to HTML. And the thing with SharePoint Online is that it doesn't support HTML. It needs to be ASPX. There are a couple of blog posts out there which mention that you need to rename them. And that's basically what this script does, is it renames all the HTML file to ASPX so they can run interactively on SharePoint. Now I'm going to run that script, which will do the same. It will build the website again. And then all the files will be renamed. Now it will start uploading to SharePoint Online, but we can actually stop that because for the sake of the demo, I've already uploaded everything. So we don't have to wait for all the files to be uploaded. Now we have basically the same content running on SharePoint Online, as you can see from the address bar. It's also pretty quick. So let's go back here. Let's just clear that. And now I want to add some content to our documentation. So we go back to articles, and let's go to index. Let's remove that. Now there is the functions. They are inside this script. I've already imported them. So all I need to do to add something is to say, let's add an image. So I want a new DocFX image link. It says no new images found. But what it did is it created a image index file, which basically is just a text file that stores all the images that are there. Now I copy this little raccoon image to the attachments folder. I run that again. Now I have now I have a markdown compatible image link path in my clipboard, and I can just paste it into my file. And I also want to do some other stuff. Let's add PnP demo, which will create a note, and it also includes another file which is located here. So that's what I meant when I said we can reuse content across site, because we can just use this include part. Now let's go back to the build DocFX for SPO script. What this also does is it renames the last build folder to site last build, and then generates a new one, and it compares the file hashes so that it knows which files have changed, and it only uploads the changed files to SharePoint, so we don't need to upload the whole site every time, which makes it just much more efficient. Now we can see which files have changed and which files are new. So if we go search for new, we can see Raccoon JPEG is new. And if we go back to our SharePoint site, we should refresh that, and we can see the Raccoon is here. And you can also see the other content that was read from the other file. Yeah, and everything is working, so search as well. Everything is searchable within SharePoint, so everything is working as if this web page was running on any other server. So very quick recap. If you want to get started with this, first you need to define your categories in a CSV file. Then you need to run the initialize DocFX project to lay out the folder structure, write your documentation content, and then review the content by previewing and verifying the site locally, and then you can publish it to SharePoint or a web server. And this is my contact card, so I'm very active on Twitter, LinkedIn, I blog on Medium, and of course I provide the code I write on GitHub. So that's it from me, and back to you, David.
Awesome stuff again, Martin. Very, very cool. I love how quickly you're able to show implementing and the benefits as well within using it in SharePoint DocFX. So really, really great job. I'm sure there's going to be lots of collaborative questions for you. Well, again, we want to thank all of our presenters. By the way, this was Samir and Jonathan's first presentation on the call. So I think we want to give them a nice round of applause. And of course, Martin rounded it out with some veteran excellence there in his demo. So thank you, all three of you. We will have opportunities for everyone to chat with him right now, in fact, with our community calls conversations. If you want to continue the call, the chat is not really the best place to do that in the team, but inside of the Power Users forums, we have dedicated threads for you to be able to collaborate with our community presenters. If you don't have an account and you want to collaborate with them, it's absolutely free to set up, no problem. You can use any of these URLs, which I will put into the chat, as well as the QR codes. There are dedicated threads for you to collaborate and chat with them, ask questions, and even just let them know they did a great job. That is absolutely welcome. Please let them know that they did awesome. It's always great. It's nerve-wracking to sometimes get on in front of everybody and show off what you're passionate about, but we appreciate all that you all do when you do that every single week. So definitely let them know they did a great job. Now, we have another exciting opportunity that we've started up in the last couple of weeks, is our official Discord server for the community. This is absolutely free to join, so don't hesitate to take advantage of it. You can use that QR code, or you can use the ak.ms/community/discord. We're starting to get more and more community folks in there and putting more on the team to work in the areas that you can collaborate with. It's a great way to use and collaborate with others live. A lot of us are sitting in there 24/7 because Vesa's a robot, doesn't sleep, so he's always in there. And you can expect that he'll answer any time of the day. No, I'm just kidding. He does sleep, but we are always there to support you all. We also want to know how you like these calls. So please, please, please fill out this feedback form. It absolutely is useful for us to let our managers and management know how you appreciate these calls. It gives us the opportunity to scale these calls and do more amazing stuff to support you in the community and recognize you. So really appreciate all that you can to provide the feedback on those forms. Only takes a couple of minutes, and we will love you for it. Now, the recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community YouTube channel. You can access those video YouTube channels at ak.ms/community/videos, and make sure you subscribe. Why? Because you're going to see in the chat the video is ready for download, and it's not. Unless you're in Microsoft, you won't be able to download it. It'll just end in sadness and tears. But if you subscribe to those YouTube channels, you will absolutely be alerted as soon as they're available. As soon as it drops, you will get a nice little message, or you can follow us on Twitter at M365PNP. You can also see the latest updates in the LinkedIn connection page at aka.ms/community/li. The next Microsoft 365 and Power Platform biweekly call, this call you're on, will be in 2 weeks, June 22nd at 7 a.m. And the next VB Connection SharePoint Framework next week, June 15th at 7 a.m. as well. So we love the consistency. Get them on your calendar. You can do that, aka.ms/community/calls. Thank you, everybody, for being, again, amazing community contributors. We could not do all this without the support that you provide. Continue being awesome. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day and a wonderful weekend.